I work in law enforcement, and this call still gives me chills whenever I think about it. One night, my partner and I got dispatched to an alarm activation. Nothing unusual at first, but when we checked the address, it wasn't one of our regulars. Never been there before. The house was tucked way back off the main road, surrounded by trees, with no lights on. It took us a while just to find the driveway. When we finally pulled up, the place looked off. No trash cans, no decorations, no signs of anyone actually living there. Just spiders, cobwebs, and this eerie stillness. We split up, like usual, to check the perimeter. The house was 2 stories. I ended up near what looked like a carport with a locked workshop on the first floor. Nothing looked disturbed. My partner was circling the other side. I found a set of stairs leading up to a massive covered porch, basically the same size as the carport below, with several old wicker furniture sets. He met me up there a few minutes later, and we started talking about how weird the layout was. The whole place felt wrong somehow, but I couldn't put my finger on why. I started peering through the sliding glass doors into the living room. Everything inside looked frozen in time. The carpet looked straight out of the 1960s. There was no TV, no electronics, no modern anything, just old furniture and still air. I radioed dispatch and asked what triggered the alarm. They came back with attic exit. That threw us both off. I'd heard of window alarms, door alarms, but attic exit, that was new. We started looking for attic access inside, but there wasn't any. Then it hit me. The porch was huge and covered. Maybe the attic was outside. Sure enough, I looked up and saw a small attic hatch directly above me, complete with alarm sensors. I told my partner, "Nope, not happening." He laughed and said, "Let's rock, paper, scissors for it." And of course, I lost, so I pull my gun, grab a flashlight, and start climbing the ladder. I'm not exactly built for attics, so I just poke my head up far enough to see. Nobody up there. Barely any stuff either. But the smell hit me, this thick, stale odor. Not a body, but like something old had died a long time ago. Like decades of dust, rot, and age. I came back down quick, told him it was clear, except for the smell. We started heading back to our cars when he joked, "You realize we had it backwards, right? The alarm wasn't for someone getting into the attic. It was for something getting out." We both laughed it off, because what else do you do? About a mile down the road, I was driving in front of him, heading back to our spot, when I caught something in my peripheral vision. A figure on the side of the road, looked like a tall, black woman in dark clothes, holding a light-colored bag. I only saw her for a second. I didn't even say anything at first, figuring my mind was just playing tricks after the weird call. Then my partner gets on the radio, "Dispatch, show us out with a person in the roadway. Same intersection, same direction." I flipped a U-turn and met him there within 20 seconds, but the person was gone. We searched both sides of the road, nothing. We compared notes, both of us saw the exact same thing. That spot was less than half a mile from that creepy house. We joked afterward that whatever was in that attic followed us out, but I'm not entirely sure it was a joke. Ever since that night, we've had little weird things happen on shift. Strange sounds, equipment acting up, glimpses of movement in dark hallways. We just call it our ghost. And that's how I ended up possibly releasing a ghost from an attic and taking it with me to work. I used to work the night shift at a hotel. It was a pretty quiet gig. I also had a day job, and my manager was cool with me catching some sleep as long as I woke up if anyone needed help. Most nights were peaceful, just me, the hum of the lights, and the occasional guest checking in late. One night though, I woke up and immediately felt like something was off. When I opened my eyes, I saw the silhouette of a man standing outside, staring at me through the small Dutch door window that looked into the courtyard. He was tall, easily 6.5 feet, wearing what looked like a long black trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. I remember my stomach just dropping. I jumped up from the couch, dropped the remote I'd fallen asleep holding, and rushed to the door to see what he needed. But when I opened it, no one was there. The courtyard was completely empty. There were only 2 straight paths leading away from the door, nowhere to hide, and there was no way anyone could have run out of sight that fast. I tried to shake it off, tell myself I was half asleep or dreaming. Eventually, I forgot about it and went back to work. About 3 weeks later, my coworker and I were talking during a shift. He started telling me about an evil spirit that supposedly haunted one of the rooms. Apparently, the staff all knew the hotel had at least 4 haunted rooms, plus a weird elevator. I laughed it off until he said, "He's tall, shadowy, wears a long coat and hat." I cut him off mid-sentence. "Wait, like 6 or 7 feet tall, black coat, hat." His face went white. He just stared at me and said quietly, "You've seen him too." Suddenly, that night didn't feel so harmless anymore, and it wasn't the only weird thing that's ever happened to me on a night shift at another job. Years later, I was working security and getting ready to do my rounds around. 3:15 a.m., the Arthur movie theme song had just played on the radio. So I was casually whistling it as I headed toward my patrol car. The place was dead silent except for crickets. I opened the car door, still whistling, and then I froze. From the bushes down by a 60-foot cliff, I heard the exact same tune being whistled back. Same melody, same rhythm, even the same windy kind of whistle that I do. Not a sharp tone, more like a soft, breathy whistle. I stopped, but the whistling didn't. It just kept going. I jumped into the car and got the hell out of there, driving off way faster than I should have. It took me 20 extra minutes to finish my route that night because I was so paranoid something was following me. Never saw anything. Never heard that whistle again. But that wasn't the last eerie thing. Sometimes, at that same job, I'd fall asleep in the break room for a bit, and I'd wake up to the sound of my old boss shouting my name. It was so clear, so loud, that I'd instantly jump awake. Thing is, my old boss had died 3 years earlier. After that, I stopped sleeping on the job. This isn't my story, but one from a friend who used to work as a night custodian at an old elementary school. The kind of building that creaks and hums even when it's silent. It had been around since the 1940s, and by the time he started working there, it already had that too quiet kind of atmosphere. He worked 3rd shift, coming in around 9 p.m. after the 2nd shift guy left. His job was simple: mop floors, lock doors, and keep an eye. Once he finished, he'd usually sit in one of the offices to watch a little TV until morning. At first, it was just little things: lights turning on in classrooms he knew he'd turned off, cabinets swinging open, doors slowly creaking shut behind him. Nothing too crazy. He figured it was just old wiring, drafts, or the building settling. Still, sometimes he'd walk around trying to catch someone in the act, thinking maybe there was a secret entrance or some kid sneaking in. But after a while, when he never found anyone, he just stopped checking and learned to ignore it. Over the next few months, things got worse. Doors didn't just close anymore, they slammed. He'd hear what sounded like children playing in the halls, sometimes laughing, sometimes screaming. Trash cans would be flipped over when he turned his back. Once, something small, like a pencil or a piece of chalk, was thrown at him, even though he was completely alone. He thought about quitting more than once, but the pay was good, and he really needed the money. So he kept going, rushing through his cleaning every night, just to hole up in that little office with the TV. He'd always make sure to face the door so nothing could sneak up on him. He never said it out loud, but he was terrified. Then came the night that made him quit for good. He was sitting in his chair watching TV when, out of nowhere, something grabbed the back of his chair and flipped him over backward. No one was there. The door was in plain view. There was no way anyone could have done it and run. He picked up the phone, called his boss in the middle of the night, and said, "I quit. I'll drop the keys off in the morning." Years later, he found out from someone who had researched the school's history that the building originally had a swimming pool in the basement. Apparently, several children had drowned there in the early years, and the administration eventually filled it in with concrete and built new classrooms on top of it. After hearing that, he said everything finally made sense, and he's been a firm believer in the paranormal ever since. I used to work the overnight shift at a 24-hour subway. One night, around 3:30 a.m., I was in the back washing dishes while my coworker was cleaning the toaster and bread ovens. Out of nowhere, I heard the door chime go off. Out of reflex, I said, "Welcome to Subway," as I turned the corner, but there was no one there. My coworker was gone too. I figured maybe he'd hopped the counter to grab a quick smoke outside, which he did sometimes. No big deal. I went back to finish the dishes. Then the chime went off again. This time, I checked immediately. Still nobody. I checked the bathrooms. Empty. At this point I was like, what the hell is going on? I decided to just stand at the counter and wait. A few minutes later, my coworker came in through the back delivery door. I asked, "Where'd you go?" He said, "Took out the trash." Before I could even respond, ding, the door chime again. He did the same thing I had earlier, called out "Welcome to Subway," turned the corner, and stopped. The front door was wide open. Our doors were weighted. They always closed automatically, even on windy days. But this time, it just stayed open, for what felt like forever. We both just stood there, watching, not saying a word. Then, out of nowhere, it slammed shut with a bang. There wasn't any wind that night. Nothing that could have kept that door open like that. We both just stood there in silence, completely freaked out. Later, I told my boss about it, and we checked the cameras together. No customers, no movement, no explanation. After I left that job, I heard from others that nothing like that ever happened again. Guess whatever it was, only wanted a late-night sandwich that one night. I used to intern at a recording studio in New York City years ago. It operated 24/7, so even when no clients were booked, someone was always there. The studio was on an upper floor, and because of all the expensive equipment, you couldn't access that floor directly by elevator unless someone inside let you up. The elevator button for that floor was locked out. You could only get there if the front desk operator activated it for you. There were security cameras everywhere, one at the building's front entrance, one at the elevator entrance, and one inside the elevator itself. From the studio's front desk, you could see all three feeds. The usual routine was to buzz people in, watch them enter the elevator, and then press the button to bring them up. One night, during an overnight shift, it was just me and another guy on duty doing cleaning and maintenance. Around 3:30 a.m., we suddenly heard the elevator moving. The entire building was filled with offices, so by that hour, everyone else was long gone. It was weird. The other guy checked the cameras, no one was on them. The elevator was completely empty. We figured maybe someone still inside had called it from another floor. That made sense, until the elevator stopped at our floor. We heard the familiar ding. Both of us froze and looked at each other, completely silent. The elevator doors slid open, nobody was there. We just stared. The doors stayed open far longer than usual, as if something unseen was standing there blocking the sensor. Normally, they closed after about 5 seconds, but this time they stayed open for what felt like half a minute before finally shutting and heading back down to the lobby. We sat there in silence for a moment before both blurting out, "What the hell was that?" The next day, we told some of the other guys what happened. One of them said the exact same thing had happened to him once middle of the night. Empty building, elevator stopping by itself, doors staying open way too long. Maybe there's a simple explanation, some kind of elevator glitch or sensor issue, but man, in that dim, quiet studio at 3 a.m., it felt genuinely terrifying.